keep it, just keep it. Yeah. Just keep it authentic TV where we only speak on facts. Just keep it authentic TV, we keep it real, no cap. Just keep it authentic TV where we keep it authentic. Just keep it authentic TV, we don't do no pretending. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Take a sit, enjoy the vibe. Yo, like, share, subscribe. Take a sit, enjoy the vibe. Yo, keep it authentic TV, where the facts outweigh the lies. Keep it authentic TV, where nothing but truth resides. Keep it authentic, share the vibe. Come enjoy the fun and don't forget to subscribe. Keep it authentic TV, where the facts outweigh the lies. Keep it authentic TV, where nothing but truth resides. Just keep it authentic, yeah. And keep it authentic, yeah. Just keep it authentic, yeah. And keep it authentic. Just keep it authentic, and keep it authentic. Baby, just keep it authentic, and keep it authentic, yeah. Hit the like button, share the vibe. Come enjoy the fun and don't forget to subscribe. Just keep it authentic TV. Just keep it authentic TV. Just keep it authentic, yeah. Just keep it authentic. Let's go. Let's go.
What's good? What's good? What's
Just keep
good?
it.
My bad, my bad. What's happening? What's happening? We back with some more content, man. We got Target on the menu today. We got the retail chain Target on the menu today, man. Now listen, I don't know how many of y'all have heard this story, but Target is once again under fire for selling a kid's Halloween costume that the public says resembles the blackface character, right? You know what I'm saying? Now, listen, okay, from my understanding, right, Target was originally under boycott and allegedly they sustained quite a loss from this situation, right? But originally they were under, boycott for refusing to continue to participate in the DIE program or the DEI program, which is a program that you know, requires them to hire a certain amount of minorities, right? So because they refused to continue to participate in that program, the public decided to boycott, their business. And, they took a substantial loss behind that, right? And we will go over that later on in this video. But then, all of a sudden, Jay-Z, probably all of our favorite rapper, what I'm saying, if not a good majority of it, he decides to, you know, give them an endorsement or give them sort of a little push again. And all of a sudden, people are now shopping again with Target. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of strange and kind of odd to me that you would suffer a loss behind a previous incident, but then you would allow yourself to be put into a position again to where now you're facing another incident of public backlash. And now, this can potentially bring forth another boycott. So, with that being said, man, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into this article concerning this costume, and we're gonna get down and we're gonna get down and break down what Target really got going on. So let's get into this article. All right, hold on, my bad, y'all. All right, here we go. Here we go. All right. So it says Target apologizes for offensive kids' Halloween costume after backlash. Okay, so it says Target stock price has fallen after the retailer came under fire for selling a children's Halloween costume that critics said resembled racist blackface and minstrel era imagery, prompting the company to remove the product and issue an apology. Okay, so here's the apology that the company issued. It says, as a company, we know we got this wrong and we are deeply sorry. The costume is offensive and should have never been part of our assortment, Target told Newsweek. The product listed as the Kids Glow Under Black Light Circus Clown Halloween costume bodysuit was sold for $25 through Target's Hide and Eek boutique Halloween collection before screenshots began circulating on social media. Critics argued that the costume's appearance, along with promotional images used to market it, invoked historical blackface characters and minstrel show imagery. By Sunday, the product page was no longer available, with Target's website displaying a message stating that the page was currently unavailable. Metadata showed the product had been published this summer. The controversy has also drawn attention from investors after reaching a recent high of 169.89 on August the 24th. Target shares fell off to 163.47 on August 25th. So, I mean, I guess that's not really too much of a loss, but that's literally within 24 hours from August 24th to the 25th. Your shares fell off from 169.89 to 163.47. So, as the retailer faced mounting backlash online, adding to the broader scrutiny of the company and its relationship with consumers. Now, once again, right, before we continue on reading with this article, right, my question to Target is, right, okay, you just recently was under boycott because of a situation that, the public, scrutinized you for then. So my question is like, okay, why would you allow yourself to be placed in another situation to where now you have to come out and issue your apology statement and you gotta basically, appeal to your consumers, to continue to get their business, right? So it's like, from what I'm gathering, right, it's like, okay, Jay-Z gave them this little endorsement, and I don't know what endorsement Jay-Z gave them. So I haven't really seen it or heard about it. So I don't really have much information on that. But, there are reports out there that says, Jay-Z gave them a little endorsement, sort of a little push, and because he kind of backed them, people started shopping with them again, because, like I said, Jay-Z has a very powerful influence over, a lot of the public. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, right, now we're going to get into why this costume is being compared to blackface, right? Because I don't want people to come in and bring in these racial narratives before they even know what the entire story is, right? You know what I'm saying? So we're going to give you some backstory information on why this costume is being compared to blackface. So let's read that right here. So it says the controversy quickly spread across threads, TikTok, and other social media platforms where some users accused the retailer of being insensitive to the history of racist depictions of black Americans, right? Okay, so now listen, we can agree that we've seen situations like this play out time and time again throughout the history, right? So my question is once again, you Target is a well-known, big chain, sort of like Walmart. Walmart may be a little bigger than them, but you got to think about all these other chains that have went out of business. You remember growing up, as a kid, Toys R Us was one of the our favorite places to go. Toys R Us is now out of business. You know what I'm saying? You remember growing up as a kid, you used to go to the big Kmart. A lot of the Kmarts are now out of business. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about these big retail chains, right? Target and Walmart, have pretty much outlasted a lot of their competition. You know what I'm saying? Because Target is still in business currently right now. So is Walmart still in business currently right now. But think about the other big chains that we can think of and remember growing up as children, right? Okay, for me, right? Like I remember Circuit City. They're no longer in business again. Um, who else that I can think of? There was a lot of places. I grew up in Washington D.C., so we had department stores like Morton's. They are no longer in business anymore. You know what I'm saying? We had other, big chains like Sears. I don't think there's a lot of Sears and Roebuck stores. There may be a few of them still floating around in some states. You know what I'm saying? But like here in Tennessee, I live in Tennessee. I haven't seen one Sears and Roebuck store out here. You know what I'm saying? So now, when you think of the history, right? You know what I'm saying? And we can only speculate and we can only guess as to why these businesses failed. It could have been just the evolution of time and these businesses weren't able to keep up. You know what I'm saying? So therefore they fell short of the competition and the competition just basically forced them out of business. You know what I'm saying? That's up to speculation, right? But now let's continue on reading this. So it says, many pointed to the costume's dark colored face covering, exaggerated makeup like design, and promotional images reminding them of blackface and a practice which is, excuse me, reminding them of blackface, a practice in which performers, particularly during the 19th century minstrel shows, darkened their skin and used exaggerated features to portray racist stereotypes of black people. Okay, now listen, I don't know. I know I've seen these imageries before. You know what I'm saying? Now me, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, right? I don't take a lot of racial stuff personal because over time, right? And over the years of me gaining knowledge and understanding of certain things, right? I don't really take a lot of racial stuff personal, like the N word, for example, right? I don't really take that word personal because, I understand the true definition of the word. Now, yes, I do understand and accept the fact that, yes, people do use it in a racial way. People do use it as a racial slur. People do use it as a means of demeaning black folks. I do understand that and I take that into consideration as well. But I also understand that, right? Listen, when you're dealing with a racist person, right? Most racist people are closed minded, meaning that they're not open to any other possibility, any other way of thinking, any other way of being a productive citizen in their country, right? Besides their way. You know what I'm saying? So most racist people, right? They believe in their way, and there's nothing that you, I, or anyone else can tell these people to get them to change their way of thinking or their way of belief. You know what I'm saying? So I have personally encountered these types of people in my lifetime, right? I'm 52 years old. I just turned 52 last month. So listen, I have encountered these type of people personally in my lifetime. And the best case scenario for me is to like say, listen, the best way for me to prove to you that all blacks aren't the same is to show you, a different side of, what you may deem as a black person, right? So if I can show you that I'm not disrespectful, that I'm not, one of these arrogant types of people that just say it's my way or the highway, if I can show you that I'm an open minded individual, right? And I'm able to accept the opinions and the different aspects and opinions of others and be accepting of it instead of trying to, you know, combat with you and fight with you over whether, who's right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? So because over the years, right, I've taught myself as well as having, encouragement and other role models in my life that have also taught me to say, hey, listen, everything doesn't warrant your time and energy, right? So, meaning what that means is basically that, you know, just because somebody says something to you, right, it doesn't mean that you have to say something back. Sometimes one of us has to be the bigger person in the situation. You know, one of us has to take the high road sometimes. And I know, and depending on the situation that you're in, taking the high road can be difficult for some of us, right? I get it. I was once that type of person as well. You know what I'm saying? But once again, going back to the growth part and the evolution part, right? I've learned to adjust and adapt to different types of situations, right? So I'm gonna give you an example of that, right? So, years ago when I was younger, right? It didn't bother me to be around people that was, always into something or, always, trying to look for drama and trouble or whatever. It didn't really bother me, that much because it's like I felt like, okay, listen, I'm well capable of handling myself and protecting myself. So like if we get into something, it is what it is. I just hope that everybody, stay 10 toes down and we handle business out here, right? And then even, in situations, because you got to understand, not everybody that you associate yourself with is of the same caliber as yourself, right? So you may look at yourself as like, listen, I'm the type of person I ain't ducking no wreck. You know what I'm saying? Like if somebody stepped to me, like we gonna get it off the ground right then and there. It is what it is. Whereas other people that you may socialize yourself with, they may look at that situation differently and they be like, man, listen, like I'm not trying to lose my life over no petty argument. Like, nah, like it's a better way. Like, bro, let's talk this out and handle this like men or whatever, right? And there's nothing wrong with that either. You know what I'm saying? But the point that I was making is, right, is that, I've taught myself over years to not give a lot of time and energy into certain things and a lot of racial motivated topics. I try to kind of stay away from those because, I understand that everybody is not as open minded as I am. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is not as understanding. Everybody is not accepting of other people's perspectives and opinions of things. So, if you're a closed minded person, then it's going to be very difficult, for you to even have a conversation with somebody that has a difference of opinion. You know what I'm saying? But let's continue on reading with this article, right? So it says several commenters compared the costume to the Jim Crow character popularized in the 19th century minstrel performances, which relied on exaggerated and derogatory stereotypes of black people. Actress Viola Davis, shout out to Viola Davis, you know what I'm saying? Viola Davis has passed away, right? Rest in peace to Viola Davis. You know what I'm saying? She was a good actress. I used to watch her in a lot of different movies and stuff like that. But actress Viola Davis spoke out against the costume, saying, "Oh, so she's still alive." So my apologies to you, Viola Davis. It says actress Viola Davis spoke out against the costume, saying that she did not accept the apology issued by the retailer. In a post on Threads on Tuesday, she wrote, Target, I do not accept your apology, and I do not believe that you understand the impact, the pain, the dehumanization of the above. These images these images laid the foundation and the ideology for every atrocity that has been committed against my people. We matter. You have shown us that you are not on our side, right? Now, once again, that is the opinion of Miss Viola Davis. You know what I'm saying? That's her opinion. And who am I, just like, who is anyone else to say she's wrong for having the opinion that she has, you know, as it pertains to this situation, right? So now let's see what the Reverend Jamal Bryant had to say. So Reverend Jamal Bryant, a Georgia pastor who led a 40-day Target fast boycott last year, also spoke out against the costume and response from Target. And what Pastor Jim Crow, I mean, excuse me, what Pastor Jamal Bryant had to say was he said a Jim Crow era minstrel costume is not simply getting it wrong. It is a profoundly harmful symbol of racism that should never have been designed, approved, or sold by Target, Bryant said. According to NPR, it shows that Target still lacks corporate diversity among decision makers and needs concrete internal change, right? So that's what Pastor Jamal Bryant out of Georgia had to say, right? So once again, we have to, ask ourselves the question is that, okay, listen, so from reading what Pastor Jamal Bryant just said, okay, he just led a 40-day fast and boycott just last year. So I'm assuming that this incident, containing the first boycott, I'm assuming that that happened last year. Now, don't quote me on that. I may need to go do some research on that to find out exactly when that particular boycott took place, right? So, but now, even let's just say for the sake of argument, you just went through this boycott last year for refusing to participate in the hiring of the minorities program, right? Okay, so now here it is, a year later, you're now involved in another public scandal or another incident where the public is outraged and they're voicing their opinion of it. So it's like I can understand why people like Viola Davis and Reverend Jamal Bryant, you know, feel the way that they feel, right? Because they're looking at the situation, they're saying, okay, look, just last year we just went through this. Now here it is, a year later, we going through a whole completely different new incident. So it's like, listen, ask yourself the question, right? How many hands and how many multiple people did that costume have to pass through to get approved to be sold in their stores, right? So it's like, listen, you meaning to tell me, let's just say that they had, you know, 30 different people that this costume had to get passed through and get approval from, right? So you telling me out of 30 different people, and I'm just quoting a number, right? I don't know what their quality assurance procedures are. I don't know how their products get passed, tested, and approved. So I'm just throwing a number out there. So don't quote me as being factual on this. This is just a hypothetical analogy, right? So let's just say these 30 people, this costume passed through, and you telling me not one person out of the 30, you know, took the initiative to say, hey man, look, I don't know about this costume, bro. I just got a funny feeling that, this might backfire on us in a very bad way. And like, listen, we just took a significant hit, last year because of, you know, the situation that we was involved with last year. So I really don't think it's in our best interest to, suffer another hit like that, right? So maybe we should rethink this costume and maybe we should you know, maybe we should take another look at this costume and rethink this situation, right? So once again, you know, I can't blame, you know, Viola Davis for her opinion. I can't blame Reverend Jamal Bryant for his opinion, right? Both of these people have been around a lot longer than myself, so they may have experienced some things that I didn't get to experience, right? So they may have a little more information and a little more back history on this particular type of situation, right? So now let's read once again the statement that Target told Newsweek, right? So it says Target told Newsweek that the company knows the costume is especially hurtful for black customers, team members, and partners. So my problem with that statement is, right? Okay, if you feel like that now, why didn't you feel like that before you released this product for sale, right? But once again, that's a question that's up for debate. Only the, officials for Target can actually legitimately answer that question, right? So let's continue on reading. It says removing the costume is an important first step, which I mean, I got to agree with that. Removing the costume is an important first step. I got to agree with that. And the company is looking closely at how this happened and what needs to change to ensure that this won't happen again. Target told Newsweek. Excuse me. Okay, so listen, right? I don't really have an issue with that statement. The only problem that I have with that statement, right, is that okay, you gave a similar statement, in regards to the first boycott over refusing to participate in the program, which requires you to hire, so many minorities. And once again, I think that program is called the DEI program. I'm not really sure. You can look it up for yourself and find out exactly what program I'm talking about. But I know the program, has to do with, these companies hiring so many minorities to work in their store, right? So that's the only issue I have is because you've already issued a similar statement in regards to the first situation. So it almost seems that now it's not like your apology isn't enough. You know what I'm saying? Like we now have to see some significant changes and some significant restructuring, in how, these types of costumes are processed. You know what I'm saying? So listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't, admire and I don't give credit to Target for at least actively looking into the situation and trying to figure out how it happened. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not going to be enough. For some people, it's going to take, for them to see some sort of action or some sort of, like regret or remorse. And they're going to want to see things, be handled and taken care of when it comes to these types of situations, right? So now let's continue on reading what, okay, so if it was the other way around, it would be okay and not talked about. Okay, listen. I'm not going to sit here and debate whether, if it was the other way around. First and foremost, I do not know the people personally involved in this situation, right? This is not something that I decided to speak out on. This is something that the public already has spoken out on, and it was just a story that came across my desk that I decided to talk about and discuss. I'm not here to argue with anybody on what their perspective is, what their opinion of the situation is. So if that's, what you want to do, then you can remove yourself from the comment section or I will remove you myself because I am not here to argue with a person's opinion. People are entitled to feel however they feel about this situation. I'm just reporting on a story that I decided to report on because it came across my desk. So once again, I am not here talking about blacks and whites. This is not something that I decided to say, oh well, I'm just going to talk about this because of whatever. No, it was a story that was being talked about. It came across my desk. I decided to do some content on it. That's it. That's all. I respect everybody's opinion, everybody's perspective. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the way it is. So I'm gonna continue on reading this article, and I'm gonna try to move forward with this video. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's all about okay. So we just gonna block you because I'm not here to discuss about anything with black folks and white folks and all this type of stuff. I'm not here to do any of that. You know. So we gonna we're just gonna go ahead and get rid of you. That way we because I'm not here to I'm not here to argue with anybody about race. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and continue with this article, right? It says Target latest shared public statement across his own social media. It was titled An Apology from Us and read, we removed an offensive Halloween costume that should never have been part of our assortment. It is no longer for sale. As a company, we got this wrong and we are deeply sorry. We know this is especially hurtful for our black guests, team members, and partners. Removing the costume is an important first step, and we are looking closely into how this happened and what needs to change to ensure that this won't happen again. Okay, so we read that same statement earlier. So now let's continue to see what the controversy hits Target stock price. Okay, the controversy has also coincided with pressure on Target stock. Shares closed at 165.44 on August 21st before climbing to 169.89 on August 24th. But then a day later on August 25th, their shares fell to 163.47 and were trading at around 162.18 as of this morning. Okay, so it says Target shares dropped roughly 5% on Tuesday as the company faces mounting backlash over the costume, with investors also weighing the potential impact on the retailer's reputation and customer relationships, right? So I guess here this is showing you a graph of Target shares, you know, fall, so it's basically, I mean, it kind of went up here, then it dropped a little bit, then it started climbing back up, then it dropped a little bit here, then we started climbing back up, then it dropped a little bit here. So, I mean, it seems like, from looking at that graph, right, that the stock has been kind of fluctuating, going up and down, up and down, up and down. But yes, I do agree that a situation like this, and with all the public backlash, I mean, I do agree that this may potentially cause y'all to take another hit. You know what I'm saying? Which that's what I don't understand. I just feel like, you've been through this already before, so why would you want to put yourself in position to go through it again? But now let's see, how does this fit into Target's recent controversies, right? It says the backlash comes at a difficult time for Target, which has spent much of the past 2 years navigating a series of political charged controversies that have alienated customers across the ideological spectrum, right? In early 2025, the company faced criticism and a boycott calls after scaling back several diversity, equity, and inclusions DEI. So that's what it is, the DEI initiatives. The boycott effort was spearheaded by a coalition of black faith leaders and churches, right, who accused Target of retreating from the commitments it had previously made to black consumers and communities. The controversy became significant enough that Target executives later acknowledged the impact on business performance, with customer traffic and sales coming under pressure. As the company struggled to regain momentum, it announced plans to eliminate roughly 500 positions across distribution centers and regional offices in early 2026. The Halloween costume dispute is now drawing renewed scrutiny from critics who argue that the retailer has become increasingly disconnected from the diverse customer base it has long sought to attract. While there is no evidence the costume was intentionally designed to invoke racist imagery, opponents say that the fact that it reached Target's online storefront at all raises questions about the company's internal review process and cultural sensitivity standards, right? So that's pretty much the end of the article, right? Now, once again, I am not here to argue with anybody's opinion of this situation, right? You know, I am not here to argue whether you feel like it's right or wrong. Once again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion of this situation. Everybody is entitled to their own perspective of this situation. I did not decide to report on this incident solely based on the fact that black people feel some type of way about it. As you can see from this camera, I am a black man, right? But listen, I am also a person that believes in right is right and wrong is wrong, right? So once again, if this was, white people, if it was a costume that was created to degrade white people or make fun of white people or dehumanize white people, right? I would expect them to speak out as well and I would expect them to, ask that something be done about it, right? And I would support them as well because right is right and wrong is wrong, right? So when people come into my broadcast, right, and they enter into the comments and they want to make things about race and try to say, okay, well, if this was the other way around, it wouldn't be talked about. Okay, listen, we don't know if that is true or not because right now, currently, it is not the other way around. You know what I'm saying? So, unfortunately, right, I cannot change the fact that black people have decided to stand up and speak out against certain things. You know what I'm saying? I can't change that. You can't change that. Nobody can change that, right? These people have their own opinions and perspectives of things. And if they have a lot of unanswered questions that they want answers to, they have every right to ask the questions, right? So, once again, I am not here to argue or debate anybody's personal opinion. And I would ask, you know, I would ask you humbly and kindly if you are the type of person that, feels like you got to make everything about race, then I would ask that you not come and join into my broadcast because I speak on a vast, assortment of different situations, right? There may be some situations that may have to do, with black and white people. There may be some situations that may have to do with somebody assaulting a child or somebody, being unalived or whatever the case may be, right? I do journalism work and I do content creation videos on a vast assortment of issues, right? So I'm not trying to limit myself to reporting on just things that involve black folks just because I'm black, right? So please do not come into my broadcast and please do not come in here and just because you see a black man speaking on an issue that the public has already, caused outrage about. I'm not the one that started this boycott. I didn't even know anything about the boycott. Somebody else brought it to my attention. I just happened to go do some research about it. I seen what was going on. Then this incident came across my desk, and I decided, okay, well, listen, this would make a great story to report about. You know what I'm saying? Because this has already kind of been, Target's mo. You know what I'm saying? They've already, scaled back on the DEI program. You know what I'm saying? People, the public caused outrage about that. So now you got this incident that happens with this costume that the public deemed, you know, you know, racially offensive or whatever. I'm not the one that deemed the costume like that. You know, yesterday was the first time I saw the costume. You know what I'm saying? And yesterday was the first time I even heard of this story, right? So once again, the public has already spoken out about this situation. The public has already formed their opinion of what they think about Target and its affiliates. You know what I'm saying? The public was the one that decided that, hey, I'm not going to take my business there. It wasn't because Blanco said, hey, don't go shop at Target. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I personally like I will shop at Target if there's something that they have that I need. But personally, I don't really have a reason to shop at Target. I go to Walmart or like I said, I live in Tennessee, so we have many different options of department stores that we can go to and you can pretty much find whatever it is you're looking for in any one of these department stores. So like at the end of the day, it doesn't bother me one way or the other if I shop at Target or not, because that is not a place that I frequent anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, right, I just wanted to go ahead and put the story out there, right, and kind of give people a little more insight as to what's going on. Because I'm sure, just like myself, there were probably other people that didn't know about this situation or was unaware of the situation, or they may have seen the situation and they may have just overlooked it and said, oh, targeting some shit again. You know what I'm saying? I ain't really paying it no mind. You know, like me personally, I can care one way or the other because, like I said, Target is not a business that I frequent on a regular basis. Like I said, I usually go to Walmart for whatever it is I need because most of the time, Walmart either has what I need in store or I can order it online, you know what I'm saying? Or I use Amazon, So, like I said, most people shop online anyway, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, my question is that, okay, you just went through a situation like this last year and now here it is a year later, you know what I'm saying? You're finding yourself involved in another situation to where once again the public is outraged and the public is calling for action. You know what I'm saying? Once again, it is not Blanco who is calling for action. It is the public. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, man, I hope y'all enjoyed the content. Make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, hype the video. And until the next one, man, we out.